So a few weeks ago, Netflix released their documentary Bad Influencing, the dark side of kidfluencers. And the documentary follows the story of Piper Raquel and the Piper Squad. Specifically, it's about the abuse that the kids faced at the hands of Tiffany Raquel and her boyfriend Hunter Hill. These kids were at best overworked and underpaid, and at worst emotionally and sexually exploited. And I'm not here to talk about the lawsuit, and I'm not here to speak for these kids about their abuse, but I am here to kind of talk about this new age way of exploitation. I'm also not here to talk bad about Piper or any of the other kids in this video, because I know that this really isn't their choice. And I'm also not going to show a lot of imagery of them because, to be completely honest, it makes me uncomfortable. But I'm going to start with an influencer similar to Piper Raquel, Danielle Cohn. Danielle Cohn was really popular probably about 5 years ago, and it's because she got a lot of attention because of the drama she was involved in. But realistically, it really wasn't even drama, it was straight up exploitation. Danielle was known for wearing very skimpy outfits, dating people much older than her, and of course the infamous rumor that she was actually 2 years younger than she claimed. I was like 15-ish when this whole thing was going on, and I am not proud to admit this at all, but at the time, I thought Danielle Cohn was just like a whore that was doing all these things for attention from men. Looking back, she was being exploited by multiple people and her mother never protected her. At the time, I would see these pictures and videos of her and be like, oh, I would never do that because I'm not a hoe, and these boys are only dating her because she gives it up. Just nasty stuff that I had no business saying about anybody. But thinking about it now, I wouldn't have been posting those things at such a young age, not because I didn't want to, but because if my mother caught me, she would have straight beat my ass. Even today, at my big age, if I was posting the sort of things that Danielle was posting at just 14 years old, the lecture I would get about creeps on the internet would be one for the history books. But let's go back a little bit to Piper and Danielle's childhoods, and even though we don't have a lot of information, it is connected to their social media presence today, mostly because they were still in their childhoods when they came on social media. Both girls came from single mothers, and I'm not going to use the term fatherless behavior because it's not the lack of father, it's the mother herself. Both girls were entered into beauty pageants when they were very young, which is weird in general. Like if someone's 15, 16, 17 and they love makeup and getting dressed up, then yes, a pageant is a great place to do that. But why someone would want to glue fake eyelashes on a fucking toddler and have them pose for grown adults just to try to win a plastic trophy is beyond me. But in the documentary, Tiffany's sister said that it almost seemed like Tiffany was obsessed with entering Piper into these competitions almost to prove to her father that she was worth something. Which is just so terribly sad. You shouldn't have to convince a parent to love their child. But since a young age, these mothers were using pageants as a way to judge their child's worth. And because social media is just another form of social currency, that was very attractive to them. Especially when their kid starts to rake in a shit ton of money, it seems like there's no line that they're not willing to cross. Now, this whole influencing thing is fairly new, so I think that a lot of family channels weren't necessarily thinking that other people aside from families were watching their videos. I mean, it's probably not in most people's immediate thoughts that their channel's getting views because people find their children attractive, and rightfully so. I do disagree with family channels in general because a lot of times these parents are putting their kids' worst moments out on the internet for the world to see with no regard for how it's going to affect their future. But in Piper and Danny's content, it is very obvious that they are trying to appear more sexualized because it's what makes the most money. Like, some of these thumbnails are insane. Piper has even gotten her YouTube channel demonetized, and now she's on a site similar to OnlyFans. I don't remember exactly what the site is called, but they do talk about it in the documentary, and basically, to create content on this website, you have to be at least 13 years old, but to buy content on this website, you have to be 18. So anybody out here saying that she's just making content for kids is lying to themselves, especially when she's been hanging around literal OnlyFans models whose entire shtick is that they still look like children.
A lot of the times they would be doing like a regular photo shoot, and then they would have a specific outfit from a brand they need to do for their Brand Army page. And one time she told her, come on Piper, you need to get Brand Army mode on, and then Piper kind of like bent over and put her butt out and like started touching her body in a very like disturbing way.
But Piper's content was a lot of those clickbait videos that seemed like they were for kids, when in reality, a lot of the stuff going on in them was not age appropriate. And a lot of times people don't think about it because they're like, okay, she's 15 and kissing a boy, what's the big deal? But in reality, she's 15 and being directed to kiss a boy by a grown man with a camera and no problem catering to pedophiles. Literally in the documentary, they talk about how Piper was constantly getting gifts from this one fan, and one of the girls thought that this fan was another girl because the fan's name was Megan, but in reality, this person was a grown man sending Piper things like clothes and iPhones. And one of the moms said that her preteen daughter looked her dead in the face and asked why men like to smell girls' underwear. A child asked this. Now, if my kid asked me that and I knew the kind of content that they were creating on these channels, I immediately probably would have put two and two together. But I'm also a younger generation that's more aware of this sort of thing. But you can actually tell in the documentary how much guilt these parents feel for not being able to shield their children from this sort of thing. Especially because when they started talking about the actual lawsuit, the kids were admitting a lot more stuff was going on than the parents had any idea about. But I'm going to go back to Danielle Cohn, who was notorious for having a lot of boyfriends, many of which were significantly older than her. One of these boyfriends was a guy named Sebastian Topete, who was 18 years old when Danielle Cohn was 14. And a lot of people were freaking out because they were like, oh my gosh, Danny's actually 12. Oh my gosh, there's an 18-year-old dating a 12-year-old. Why is an 18-year-old dating a 14-year-old? And the narrative was always like, oh, she's a manipulator. She's telling him that she's 14 when she's really 12. It doesn't matter whether she was 14 or 12. He was a grown man that had no business being in a romantic relationship with her. And her mother did nothing. Her mom often played this whole, oh, Danny's so crazy, oh my gosh, I can't control her, but there's literal videos of her telling her underage daughter to show off her body more.
She doesn't even like touch the photo. Like, I've literally been taking her photos the whole time with the Hiji thing, and she just goes and posts it. But they all want to come back at her. Oh, you Photoshop, you make yourself. Yeah. Whatever. Danny, show them your body so they can be quiet.
There was this one video that Danielle posted years ago that was like letting her mom look through her camera roll, and her mom really didn't seem to care about any of the pictures that she was taking or the stuff that she was posting. She would often say stuff like, oh, you look really good in this picture, or oh, this is a really cute outfit. But I remember very clearly that she found this one video and she freaked out and she was like, oh my god, Danny, what were you thinking?
Oh my god, Danny. What are you thinking?
And Danielle was just like, oh, that's why I didn't post it. But the video was not much worse, or even worse at all, than the stuff that she was actually posting online. So I don't understand why she would have this sort of reaction to this video, but no reaction to the other stuff. Actually, I know exactly why. It was because she was trying to stir up drama for the camera. But Danielle had another boyfriend when she claimed that she was 15, Mikey Tua, who was 17. A lot happened with them. They like faked a pregnancy and then faked getting married. But when they broke up, Mikey had this whole freak out on live talking about how Danny lied to him and that she actually was 13 years old.
He threatened Danny to expose her? Yo, okay, I'll expose you then. You are 13. There's nothing more to expose.
And you wanted me to come and live with your 13-year-old daughter away from my family. You're crazy.
But then a few months later, they literally got back together, so apparently it didn't bother him very much that he was dating a middle schooler. There was a time where she had like a revolving door of boyfriends, and it seemed like every time she introduced these guys, they would immediately like skyrocket in popularity. So many of them were just taking advantage of her for clout. And when a child is being encouraged to act more adult by an authority figure, especially her mother, it makes it very easy for grown people to come into her life and use the phrase, oh, you're so mature for your age. Now, based on the documentary, the kids made it seem that Piper was very aware of the way that she was being forced to act, but Danielle was not. But there's also not a documentary about Danielle. And I help coach a middle school softball team, so I'm around girls that are 12, 13, 14 all the time. And I just can't imagine, like, I don't even want to say it. And those aren't even my kids, but if someone came up to one of these girls offering them money to act in these ways, I would literally end up in jail. It's just insane to me that there's people that are willing to promote these sexual depictions of their children for money. But actual kids are watching these kidfluencers and seeing the way that they dress and act and think that that is the way that they're supposed to be dressing and acting. So kids younger and younger are doing these things and genuinely have no idea that it's not normal or is it safe because it's all that they see online. And it's disproportionately affecting things like their body image and self-worth because they're real kids instead of these edited, manufactured influencers. And the exploitation is not always sexual, but it is always fake and going to hurt their future. Like the mom that always posts videos about how spoiled her daughter is.
Amelia, what are you doing?
I'm about to throw it.
No, you're not.
Oh, really?
Just because you wanted a bigger one?
You want to see about that?
If you throw that thing, so help me God. Amelia Rose.
You think I care about that garden tablet?
But hate comments boost engagement too, so she's gonna let people on the internet attack her child because it's giving her attention. But I do think that kids can exist on social media in a safe way, but that mainly comes down to the parents protecting them, just like in the real world. Like the first truly internet famous kid I remember was Gavin from Vine, and these videos were literally just Gavin saying funny things because he was a funny little guy. Like there was no money tied up into it, he was not trying to sell them anything, and he definitely was not influencing other children to act a certain way. And today there are kids on social media that are being innocently enjoyed, but they're more on social media for like the right reasons. You know, having fun, raising awareness, etc., not just for the sole purpose of making money. But more importantly, these accounts are also being heavily monitored by adults that are prioritizing the safety of these children, not clout and not making money. But also, can we talk about how little internet safety seems to be talked about anymore? Like so many of these influencers have their full government names and their addresses and their family members and pretty much information of where they are at every moment of every day just out in the public. I came from a time where we were taught to never tell people your last name, never tell them how old you are, where you live, if you're home alone, all this stuff because anybody could be a predator. Speaking of predators, I have to mention how James, happy 15th birthday Charles, posted a picture of him reading Sunrise on the Reaping, like he did not try to sexually exploit minors. But the exploitation of minors is not something that we can ever truly get rid of entirely because there's always going to be parents willing to put their children in harm's way for money. But in the case of social media, we can at least support legislation that is being created to help ensure that these child influencers are at the very least being compensated for the work that they're doing. California just passed a bill about this, and curiously, if you've noticed, a lot of these family channels are now moving out of Los Angeles. But you know, that's it for today, guys. Stay safe out there and have a great rest of your day.